There is a renewed push to enact new laws regulating the purchase and ownership of guns and push back from those who say there are enough laws in the books already. Is there middle ground where lawmakers can reach a deal to deal with the epidemic of mass shootings in America? That's the starting point of our in-depth conversation this week with moderator Susan Cadeau.
Rich, this is a topic that is burning up America right now and in Oklahoma with the Buffalo shooting on May 14th. You have 10 killed, 3 injured. Uvalde, 21 killed, mostly children, and in Tulsa, 4 killed at the hospital up there. This is something that needs to be addressed here in Oklahoma and the rest of America, and our guests are just the ones to help us do that. I'd like to introduce them to you now. First, we have Khaki Porch, who's a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, Miles Hall, who is with Hall and Hall Consulting, and Diana Muller, who is the founder of the DC Project Women for Gun Rights. So I'd like to thank all of you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. I imagine we're going to have a really educational discussion. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to begin by giving Khaki and Diana 1 minute each to explain why more gun legislation is needed or not needed, and then we'll get into some specific areas to see if there's room for compromise. Khaki, we're going to start with you. About a minute. Go ahead. And
okay, gosh. So, well, that's a very, I don't know if I can answer that in a minute, because there is so much that Moms Demand does to advocate against gun violence. But in particular, if we're talking about legislation, we absolutely support universal background checks. We really do not have that in this country. I think that is, that is a very sensible thing that we should be doing in this country. Also, red flag laws. That is where law enforcement can temporarily remove firearms from a person who is potentially a harm to themselves or others. There is due process. To me, those are two things that we could do immediately that would make a huge difference in this country.
Diana, I'm going to come to you.
I'm a retired police officer from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I know how important it is for you to be your own first responder. And time after time after time, we're seeing that these gun laws are not effective. We have evidence of their efficacy over the past, 30 years, with all of these gun-free utopias, whether it be Baltimore, whether it be St. Louis, Chicago, all of these places that have the most violent crime. And it's common sense to me and the members of the DC Project that those cities look at the laws of the cities that aren't plagued with violent crime and do what they do, as opposed to trying to enforce the same principles that aren't working on the rest of the country.
Miles, I want to come to you next. Tell us first a little bit about the work you do with Hall and Hall and how it relates to gun legislation in America.
Oh, my wife and I started H&H back in 1981 here in Oklahoma City.
Explain what H&H is for those who may not know.
H&H Shooting Sports. It was actually a gun range when we first opened. Then we moved into sales and became one of the top 10 dealers in the country. But we've always been around education. That's been at the core of everything that we've done. And when we sold, we started going out and sort of carrying that on with all the other retailer ranges around the country to make sure they were trying to follow at least in that same vein. The retail market that's out there really does want to do the right thing by everybody. And it's already a regulated industry pretty heavily. And there's agencies who come in and inspect ranges and retailers like with a fine tooth comb. And they try to do the very best they can. And our job is to try and help them with that as best we know how to do anyway.
All right, here we go, Khaki. We're going to dive into some specifics. You mentioned universal background checks. How's that different from what we have in place right now?
Well, you can actually get guns from a private dealer. There it is loose at some of the gun shows. You could walk into a gun show, talk to the right seller, and get a gun immediately. That is a mistake. Also, with a background check, I believe there's a 3-day waiting period. We should have a 3-day waiting period. We have a history of people immediately getting guns and immediately having horrible, horrible consequences. I believe if the Tulsa shooter had not had access to that gun immediately, that Tulsa could have been prevented.
All right, Diane, I'm going to come to you. What are your thoughts on what Khaki and I just discussed? And I also kind of want to throw your way the raising the gun ownership age from 18 to 21. Good or bad idea?
Sure, let's go with the Tulsa first. I actually happen to be very intimate with that since I've actually had surgery in that building. I've walked into that building, and every time I do, I see a gun-free zone sign on it. And it's It hurts me. It hurts me to think that I'm a retired police officer, so I can carry where some civilians can't. And I'm armed, so I feel comfortable, but I'm like, there was a gentleman in the Tulsa shooting that was there with his wife. He was trying to hold the door shut. And I just wonder, did he look at that sign and leave his gun in the car? Was he legislated out of being able to protect himself or others in that building? So that's where I stand, is that I can't control the actions of other people. I can't control what crazy or evil people do, but I can control what I do, and I can be prepared to be my own first responder. So I feel like everything in my 52 years has kind of brought me to these principles that I know that I have to protect myself, and that's my message to the world. As far as the 18 to 21-year-old, if we need to have the same energy about voting. If you don't think that these people are capable of defending themselves, we need to have the same energy about voting, about drinking, about, it should be the same across the board. If I can be an adult and I can start a family at 18 years old, there's absolutely no reason that the government should tell me that I can't protect myself how I choose and do it effectively. Women are, we're smaller, we're likely less equipped for violence, and a firearm is the great equalizer. Gun rights are women's rights.
I'm going to push back, but I'm going to push back in Miles's direction on this. You have to have a license to fish. You have to have a license to drive a car and all that. You have to be trained. You have to take driver's ed. Why not have training when it comes to a deadly weapon, Miles?
Well, of course, we were founded on doing education and training all that we could. And we've also found the audience out there is very hungry to do that. There's a difference, though, between the public wanting that and trying to dictate it on the federal level down. I've always believed that the more you know, the safer you're going to be. It's always the best thing to do. A real issue, though, in all of this has really, honestly, if we're truthful to ourselves, it's not a gun issue. This is a mental health issue. And years ago, when Columbine happened, one of the things that I and a group of others did, we were trying to figure out what are the laws with regards to mental challenge issues, because we've talked about the red flag laws, which is an interesting concept. But we looked at 50 states, and there's almost 50 separate rules as to what constitutes somebody who is of danger versus not of danger. And I think that's the thing that we all worry about, is how far are we going to go with some of these things? The young man in California who went in, he went to school dressed up in a complete hazmat suit. And that's how he was in school. And I sit back and think about, did the young man really needed to have somebody he could talk to, and I worry that we sometimes push these matters so far, and just the whole goal is to get rid of guns. It's not a matter of trying to fix issues, at least that we see, because the real issue is mental health issues. That's what we need to be addressing in this country. I don't have an answer on how to do that, by the way. I wished I did, but I know there's got to be good people out there who could sit down and begin to figure those angles out, where you're not trouncing upon what we're founded on, but you're really trying to help people get through the issues that they're having, whatever those issues are.
Miles, what about a more stringent waiting period?
I think a right delayed is a right denied. And all the years that we've been in business, I can tell you, we had people who came in to get their gun because their life was in imminent danger. And that's the reason they were there getting their very first gun, because they feared for their own lives. Do we tell them, no, you've got to wait for whatever reason? That's they're already in this world of trauma of having to deal with.
So how do you weigh that
situations.
against,
Does that
and I
make
know
sense?
you're putting it in the court of mental health, and really I'm gonna address this to everyone, and anyone can answer this. There's also the saying of, if you tighten gun control laws, I think maybe it goes to the extreme that the only people with guns will be criminals. Law-abiding citizens will obey the laws and not have the guns. There's that saying that's out there. Kaki, I want you to come up next. Do you have anything in response to what you heard from Miles and to this saying about only the criminals will have guns?
Yeah, so first of all, I disagree with that. And we talked about mental health issue. It is not an either or. I think we should work on both. To me, why wouldn't we? Mental health is an issue in this country, and particularly with COVID, it is really a crisis. And I want to talk about mental health issues, actually, in association with firearms. Young people, suicide is 63% of gun deaths in Oklahoma, that is an enormous number. So that is mental health with a person with access to firearms. So there was actually an interim study in the Senate about mental health issues. Young women are making it to the hospital. Young men are not, because they have unfettered access to firearms. We can save lives with common sense gun legislation, but also I do agree that we should address mental health issues.
I believe Diana raised her hand.
California is it has the highest incidence of mass shootings. Chicago is, so you're telling me that you want Chicago laws throughout the rest of the state so the rest of the state can look like Chicago. That's what a common sense person hears. And it doesn't make any sense to us. We would think that Chicago should implement the laws of the rest of the state that's not having issues. When you disarm the public and you make it so a person cannot defend themselves, criminals are boldened and crime soars. That's what's going on in Chicago. But I'm so happy to get to talk to you, Kaki, and have these discussions. I think that Moms Demand membership probably has really well-intentioned members. We all want the same thing. We all want to be safe. We all want our children to go to school and be safe. It's just we differ in how we do that. And I feel like Moms Demand has been listening to people that aren't experts in firearms and they aren't experts in violence and getting a little bit of misinformation.
Is that true, Kaki?
No, I absolutely disagree with that. We have firearm owners in our group. Neil Hester, who was very involved with preventing trying to lower the suicide rates in Oklahoma with the veterans. He's been very active with that. He actually believes, which Miles, you'll appreciate this, that as a gun owner, not a part of being responsible is you have to use your weapon. You actually should go to our firing range. You should be more equipped and actually be shooting your weapon more. Like he sees that to go along with firearm safety, is using it more in a safe environment like a shooting range.
So we're nearing the end of our time. I do want to throw one last topic out there, more of a presence at schools, law enforcement presence at schools. Yay or nay, Miles?
Yay, very much so. Yeah, it was mentioned earlier by Diana that these no gun signs are just absolutely open invitations for a problem, because these people, as crazy as they may be in the situation they are, they're at least cognizant enough to know if I go into this place, nobody's going to shoot back. And that's a problem. We have unarmed or disarmed and discouraged the ability of being able to have our property and our children to be taken care of,
Diana, final comments?
One of the Parkland dads, Andrew Pollack, has done a deep dive into all of the policies and all of the rules and all of the laws that failed his daughter and the 25 other kids that were murdered in Parkland. These laws do not work. And it's not that we hold on to our Constitution. It's not that we just say, hey, this is unconstitutional. It's just that we say, hey, these don't work. And they're not going to keep our kids safer. And for the White House to come out and say that they're not interested in hardening schools as targets is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. The amount of pushback we get from people who put a wall around themselves and put guns all around themselves to protect themselves. So as a citizen, as a private citizen, I just encourage everybody to take their safety into their own hands. If they don't want to carry a gun, there are things that you can do to make yourself a harder target, but you have to get trained. We're all about training.
And Kaki, we'll let you wrap things up.
Oh yes, I do have a lot to say. Miles, something I would love to see is a school counselor in every school. I think that would make it a huge difference. Yes, thank you.
I do.
So that would
We
be
had
great.
him when I was younger.
On that.
We actually had him in school when I was younger. Not anymore.
Well, I know, and they should truly be in every school because there are warning signs. So we can stop
Yep.
things before it becomes a crisis. So something else I really want to stress is we have resources here in Oklahoma. The Oklahoma School Security Institute was actually founded after Sandy Hook. It is part of Oklahoma Office of Homeland Security. Also, OSSI does programs in schools at no cost. They offer risk and vulnerability assessments, which are performed again at no cost. The Oklahoma Department of Education Office Office of School Safety and Security, they too offer programs at no cost. Things that we could do is increase locks. We could have a safety button. It is Oklahoma law that, that individuals with the appropriate training can be in school. Training is important, but there are so many other things we can do to secure our schools, including having school counselors so that our kids are saved and their well-being is taken care of.
Well, Kaki, Miles, Diana, I know there's so much more we could discuss. When we scheduled this, I said we could go a full half hour. I know, but we're going to leave it there. I want to thank all of you for your time and your insight, how educational for me, and I know for everyone else who listened. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.